What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. I'm Mike Tagliere here with you guys on week one. This is like the Christmas morning, guys. We finally get to open the gifts that we've drafted, whatever you want to call it. We're watching football. There is nonstop action today, so we're not going to spend too much time on injuries, fortunately, because there aren't too many things to talk about. Just because, we had the preseason, a lot of starters didn't play. We had a good grasp on who was going to be in, out of the lineup, suspended, whatever the case may be. But we're going to let some people get in here. I am going to do some questions for you guys, as many as I possibly can during this hour. But at the start, I am going to start by talking about Antonio Brown and basically the shenanigans that have taken place over the last, 48 hours, I should say. But before I get into that, make sure you guys do me a favor and click the like button. It really does help my boss. It tells my bosses that you guys do appreciate the show. You guys enjoy it. We like it. It helps our channel grow. Obviously, last year we took a big step in that direction. So thank you. Thank you again. And also make sure to hit that subscribe button if you're not already. So let's talk about Antonio Brown. Antonio Brown forced his way out of Oakland. If you guys have been, sleeping under a rock or whatever the last 48 hours, he basically just did everything in his power to force his way out of Oakland, and Oakland released him yesterday. A couple hours later, he's signing with the New England Patriots on a deal that is reportedly worth up to $15 million. So Antonio Brown is going to play with Tom Brady. He is not going to be available for you this week. So if you have Antonio Brown, take him out of your lineups. He's not playing for the Patriots. He's not playing for the Raiders. He's not playing for anybody this week. He's not even allowed to be on the sideline as far as, from what I understand. He can't even be on the sideline for the game tonight. So Antonio Brown out of lineups. What does it mean for him this season? Well, a lot of people are wondering, what's the target potential there? We knew with Oakland that he was going to see 150 plus targets. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think Antonio Brown's going to see 150 targets with Tom Brady. This isn't going to be a team that suddenly goes from, 575 pass attempts to throwing the ball over 600 times. That's not who Bill Belichick is. That's not what he wants to do. In certain games, they're going to throw more, but they do have a run game. They have an offensive line that's built to run the ball. Tom Brady is another year older. There's a lot of things that factor into this, but New England has basically told you we are in win now mode. We're willing to sign Antonio Brown to a one-year deal. We have Josh Gordon. We have Julian Edelman. And they do have a phenomenal run game. So, what does it mean for Antonio Brown? I'm willing to rank him as a low-end wide receiver one, just because it's like you get outside the elite tier, and we're looking at guys that you're not really 100% sold on the fact that they're going to finish as a wide receiver one. Like Mike Evans, we have Chris Godwin's emergence. Keenan Allen struggled to stay healthy throughout his career. He's done well. All right, guys, if you guys can see me, let me know. All right, guys, I'm sorry about that. There's obviously some network problems, and this is things we cannot control, unfortunately, when you're doing things over the internet. So I apologize for that. We seem to be stable now. So getting back to Julian Edelman and the fact that he is, I consider him a low upside wide receiver 3. And what do I mean when I say low upside? Does that mean he cannot finish as a wide receiver 2? No, it absolutely does not. When I say low upside, it means he's not reaching top 12 numbers. It's not happening, guys. Julian Edelman's best finish in his career is the wide receiver, I want to say it was wide receiver 18. Now, granted, he has not played all 16 games. He's only, I think, 2 times in his career he's played all 16 games. So that's my concern with Julian Edelman. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. But even when on the field, his best finish in wide receiver points per game was wide receiver 12. Now you're adding in Josh Gordon, you're adding in Antonio Brown. These guys are going to get targets. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Julian Edelman is useless. I'm not that guy. I was someone that was telling you Julian Edelman was going to be a solid wide receiver 2 when he was on the field. Here's the issue, though. They're not going to throw the ball more. You don't bring in Antonio Brown not to throw him the ball. Do you want Antonio Brown problems? You know that when you bring in Antonio Brown, you have to target the guy. Otherwise, he's going to have temper tantrums. The guy he just basically temper tantrumed his way out of Oakland. Julian Edelman is 33 years old. He's coming off a broken finger. He landed on it wrong in the preseason. Everything is okay. But guys, understand that there's so much risk with Julian Edelman. James White is not going to be dialed back too much in the passing game. Will it, the addition of Antonio Brown is going to cut back the targets for everybody, the target potential for everybody, including James White. But James White is phenomenal in his role. So why are we saying that Julian Edelman's not going to lose targets, but James White will? White has been phenomenal as well in that role. So I have Julian Edelman as a low upside wide receiver 3. Yes, he's a relatively safe wide receiver 3. He'll give you some wide receiver 2 weeks, but not high upside. This really does hurt Josh Gordon quite a bit, because Gordon didn't post big numbers with Tom Brady last year. He did see the targets that we want him to see, but it was like, that first year connection, that could have been it. Whatever the case is, Josh Gordon did not have a massive year with Tom Brady. Now we add Antonio Brown, and it's another perimeter wide receiver. Those are the competing targets that we're going to be talking about. So Josh Gordon takes a big hit here. He's now like a very volatile wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4 type option. And again, you get to that range and you're talking about guys like Robbie Anderson that I'm not particularly sold on. So would I rather have Josh Gordon? Yeah, I would. So that's why I'll keep him in the wide receiver 3 conversation, but this does affect him a lot because he's not going to see those 8-9 targets per game that he was getting for the majority of last season. The running game is going to become much more efficient. Sony Michel, I've said it before, I'll say it again. He has a good shot to lead the league in touchdowns. And if he scores double-digit touchdowns, he's going to finish as a top 15 fantasy running back. Love Sony Michel. This does put a ding in James White's potential. I still think he's going to be involved, and you're going to be able to rely on him for RB3 flex production most weeks. So I'm not going to dial those guys back, but again, moving on to like further down the depth chart for guys like Rex Burkhead, this completely removes them off the radar. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that just at the start of the show. I know a lot of people had question marks about it, but talking about the injuries for week 1, the ones that you need to know about, Jordan Reed is out. The concussion, he was getting closer to playing. He took part in part of the practices this week, but they ultimately decided to rule him out. I would anticipate he'll be back next week. What does this mean? This means Vernon Davis becomes a guy that if you're looking for a last-ditch option at the tight end position, I don't think Vernon Davis is a bad play. Against Philadelphia, they've been a really good team against tight ends the last few years under Doug Peterson, but at the same time, you're looking for targets at the tight end position, and you might be left in a really tough spot. So Vernon Davis, okay, he's not someone I would target in DFS or anything, though. Another player in that game, Adrian Peterson, we heard this morning that he is going to be inactive. It's a healthy scratch. He's not hurt or anything like that. It has to do with special teams, apparently, and there's some veterans that are not happy about it on the Redskins. So how does this play out with the team? It doesn't really matter. They're not going to win this game against Philadelphia, but Adrian Peterson is out of the lineup. If you were going to rely on him for flex production or something like that, forget about it. It wasn't a great week to start him anyway. I talked about that in the primer. What this does is bump up Chris Thompson, and it bumps up Darius Geis. Darius Geis I have he's a top 30 running back play this week. I don't think that he's a must start by any means. Again, this is a tough Philly defense. They're finally healthy. But Geis is going to get, I would say, 15 touches in this game, and that's definitely worthy of a start in fantasy football, provided you don't have a better option. Chris Thompson is someone that in PPR formats, I would anticipate he's going to touch the ball at least 8 to 10 times, and if he gets that many touches, most of the time it's going to be catches. He's going to wind up producing for somebody in the flex spot. So we're gonna go through all those questions, guys. I'm just touching on the injury news, and I swear I will get to as many questions as I possibly can. Stephon Diggs, he popped up on the injury report, I think it was on Wednesday, in regards to a hamstring, which is never a good thing. And Stephon Diggs is someone, by the way, who has not performed very well when he's been on the injury report. Now, they're saying it's nothing to worry about. He did return. He was back at practice on Thursday, but there's a little bit more risk here. This comes back down to like DFS, where it's like Stephon Diggs, I'm not going to play him in a cash game lineup. It does help me feel better about Adam Thielen in terms of like a cash game play in DFS lineups. So understand that Stephon Diggs just comes with a bit extra risk this week, and that's never a good thing. Robbie Anderson, they're saying that he is going to play through this calf strain that he's been battling in the last couple weeks. But he has a tough matchup to begin with, guys. He's going up against Tre'Davious White and the Bills. The Bills' defense was so good last year. I think people continually underestimate, what that defense has become. And they add Ed Oliver in the draft. I mean, Ed Oliver's a player. He's going to help that pass rush quite a bit. So that team is very good. I just don't like Robbie Anderson very much this week. He's a very volatile option to begin with, and it's just a terrible matchup. So, but he is going to play if you were wondering that. And then the last one is Kiki QT. We don't know for certain if Kiki QT is going to play or not, and this game is not until Monday night, so we're probably not going to find out. What I will say is that I would not rely on him. Even if he is active for this game, I would not play him. We saw QT come back from injuries a few times last year, wasn't ever really healthy. He just never got right, okay? He played well when he was in the field, but adding Kenny Stills to the lineup, I believe that those guys are going to platoon, even if Kiki QT does play in this game. I think that they're going to share snaps. So this is a wait-and-see approach. Kenny Stills would be an interesting play, but again, this is a guy that's only been with the team for a couple weeks now. You can't really expect too much out of him, but he's more of like a desperation play. And that's going to wrap up the injuries, guys. So I do want to make sure You guys know I'm not going to skip anybody in the chat purposely. Sometimes YouTube, the way that the chat works, that I see it, it's just going to roll over people, and that just happens, unfortunately. So I'm going to answer questions in the best way that I can. And again, there's probably going to be a lot of similar ones, so hopefully I talk about the player that you want. And I also want to make it clear too, if you guys don't get an answer here, if you guys have not seen the primer, it's something that I do every single week. It's an article that I write a paragraph on every player from every single game. It's my way of giving you the best sit-start advice I can without being emotional about it. You know, you're able to read it and say, oh, okay, he says this guy's a low upside wide receiver 3. This guy's an upside wide receiver 4. What are you looking for in your lineup? Sometimes you need to shoot for upside because you know you have a tough matchup, whatever the case is. Maybe you had your week start out with, Anthony Miller or Geronimo Allison or even Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams. You might need to shoot for a little bit more upside. So that's where that article can help you. But again, that's called the primer. I'm going to be doing that every single week for you guys. It's the 3rd season of it, so hopefully you enjoy it. But let's get into some questions. All right, Matt Breida or Marlon Mack? I'm going to go with Marlon Mack here. I know that we saw Matt Breida atop the unofficial depth chart, and that's always a good feeling, and I think Tampa Bay is a great matchup. We saw Matt Breida last year, over 100 yards on 14 carries against Tampa. This defense did lose, I think it's like 6 or 7 starters on it, which is never a good thing, but when you look at how bad they were last year, I don't know if it could be a bad thing. But at the same time, Tevin Coleman has been added to that offense. He is going to be involved. We don't know what to expect out of that timeshare, right? We do know that Marlon Mack is the Colts lead back. That's happening. Against the Chargers, if there is one area of the field where they could use probably some help, it's against the running back position. And, like Denzel Perryman, he's been a letdown as an interior linebacker. Derwin James is probably not going to play this season. So if you're looking for some like silver lining here with Marlon Mack, it's that the offensive line is still in place. Jacoby Brissett does present somewhat of a threat with his legs, so maybe a defense has to account with that, like a safety or a linebacker. So therefore, Marlon Mack should be fine in this game. They said that they wanted to use him more on 3rd downs. I don't know if I necessarily believe that, but I'm going to take the guy in a week like this. If you have a chance to play a guy that you know his role, he's in the same offense, same personnel, I'm going to go with that guy. So Marlon Mack over Matt Breida, even though Breida, his matchup is better, and I would anticipate he's probably going to lead that timeshare, but I can't say for certain. I can say that Mack will be the top running back for the Colts. All right, see Latavius Murray or Jarvis Landry in the flex. I'm probably gonna go with Latavius Murray on this one. Jarvis Landry has the toughest matchup of the Browns wide receivers. Logan Ryan covers the slot for Tennessee, and he's been the stable one. Let's just be honest about it. Adoree Jackson's been up and down in his production. I know they sometimes rely on him to shadow opposing wide receivers. He's been okay. I mean, there's been moments where it's like, okay, he could be good, and then there's other moments where you're like, Malcolm Butler, disappointment, right? So it's like we're looking at Jarvis Landry has been again, he has the toughest matchup on the field. So I'm going to go with Latavius Murray. At least you're going to be getting some guaranteed touches. Houston's defense, without Jadeveon Clowney, that defense is like legitimate. There's a lot of players that they're missing on that defense they had even over the last couple of years. So I'm going to say Latavius Murray, hope for a touchdown in what's projected to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. Kyle Rudolph or Darren Waller, PPR tight end. I'm going to go with Waller on this one. Waller is someone that, with Antonio Brown gone, they're going to be forced to rely on him a lot. Some people actually had him as a sleeper with Antonio Brown on the team, saying that the tight end is just so important to John Gruden and Greg Olson's offense that they liked him as a sleeper. When they cut Luke Wilson, it obviously showed confidence in Waller to be that guy. He's like a big wide receiver. He's not going to be kept in the block very much. Denver last year did have some troubles with tight ends, but again, this is a different defense. Vic Fangio, what he's going to do for that defense is going to be massive. I think Denver's front 7 is going to be pretty nasty. But at the same time, the ball has to go somewhere. Tyrell Williams does have a tough matchup, probably Chris Harris Jr. most of the time on him. So I'm going to go with Darren Waller here. I just think that the targets are too hard to pass up, whereas Kyle Rudolph, in Minnesota, games have been lower scoring there. So it's like you don't want to chase points in that game. And Rudolph hasn't... there's a reason they drafted Irv Smith. Let's see. Diggs or Ridley? I would play Diggs still. That they're obviously playing in the same game with each other. But Calvin Ridley against Minnesota. Minnesota has just been so good inside at home. They say that outside of Seattle, that's probably the hardest place to play in the NFL right now. And I kind of believe it. Looking back through the stats the last few years, they've been brutal. You just don't want to play players there if you can help it. And we're talking about a number 2 wide receiver for the Falcons, with a healthy cornerback unit for the Vikings. So I'll go with Stephon Diggs here. The matchup for him it's a good one. I mean, Isaiah Oliver, Desmond Trufant. Trufant used to be a good player, but over the last couple of years, he just hasn't been the same. And Oliver was a rookie last year, played limited snaps, now walking into a starting role after they cut Robert Alford. So I'm going to go with Stephon Diggs here. I understand there's some risk, but let's not pretend that there's not risk with Ridley too. All right, let's see. James White. All right, Damian Harris is available on waivers. Would you drop Chase Edmonds or Darrell Henderson or Darwin Thompson to add him? Yes, I would actually drop any of those guys to add him. Just because I believe they're all handcuffs is what they are, right? Chase Edmonds is a handcuff to David Johnson, who, by the way, we don't know how that offense is going to perform yet. I happen to think Chase Edmonds is probably a good guy to keep on your bench as an upside player, but Darrell Henderson, more upside, right? That's a guy that might have a role even with Todd Gurley healthy, so I don't want to let him go. Darwin Thompson, he's absolutely third string now, so it's really tough. We do know that, Damian Williams was nowhere near the top of the depth chart for the Chiefs last year, and he worked his way up there. So it's possible. I would probably drop Chase Edmonds here for Damian Harris, because I think Damian Harris is one of the best handcuffs in all of football. Because, again, if something happened to Sony Michel, who has had 2 knee scopes in the last 12 months, Damian Harris would walk into a massive role, and it would, that's just something you definitely want to attack. So Damian Harris is one of the best bench stashes in all of football. All right, Tim tags, good morning. Good morning, dude. Michelle or Breida today? I'm going to go Sony Michel. 1 PPR. Love this, by the way. Have Montgomery at flex in the same league. I'm staying on that hill. All right, so let me start with the first question. It's Sony Michel for me because, again, we're talking about the lead back in the offense. Pittsburgh, their secondary got a lot better last year as the year went on. Like, they really struggled, I think it was over the first 4 weeks, and then they played Atlanta, and they kind of changed up their defensive strategy and what they were going to do, and they started shutting down opposing passing games. Like, Joe Hayden was phenomenal, and they started allowing more on the ground. They did add through the draft, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Pittsburgh is going to be an elite run defense all of a sudden. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Sony Michel is the one you want. That game, I want to say projected over-under is in the high 40s, which is always good. Matt Breida, again, a timeshare. Matt Breida, I do like, but when you're talking about proven guys like a Marlon Mack that we had earlier, like a Sony Michel, I'm going to play those guys. Michel, when he's healthy, he's in your lineup. That's how I feel about him. And then as for David Montgomery, I think that if you have someone in your league that's panicking, that let's say that we get done with this week, right? And then all of a sudden you look at lineups for the next week and you've seen that they've moved David Montgomery out of the starting lineup. That's a attack, okay? Go after David Montgomery. He is going to be the running back that leads this Bears team. I think this was more of like Matt Nagy overthinking things. He coached a terrible game on Thursday night, and I think it's back to the drawing board, and it's like we have to do what works. So David Montgomery looked the best of the Bears running backs. Tariq Cohen was being used in the slot. Tariq Cohen's probably a sell high, to be honest with you. He played in the slot a lot because Anthony Miller missed some practice time leading up to that game with an ankle injury. He seems to be fine, so I would anticipate him going back to the full-time slot role and Tariq Cohen being mixed in. Mike Davis would definitely lose some snaps because of that, but David Montgomery ultimately will be the guy. When I say buy low, buy low. I'm not talking about giving up someone like Sony Michel for him or anything like that. I'm talking about buying low. If you're able to trade someone like Tevin Coleman for a David Montgomery, I would do that. All right, so let's see. Hey, tags, Vernon Davis or Rudolph? I guess I'd probably go with Kyle Rudolph. I'm not really excited about the Washington offense. I just can't see him scoring many points. Atlanta's defense, they're healthier than last year, and so many people are going to point to, the Vikings have a great matchup. Atlanta's defense allowed this and this and this last year, but guys, they suffered so many injuries last year. They were down like 3 of their top 4 starters on defense. That's massive, especially in the secondary. So I'm going to go ahead and say that Atlanta's going to bounce back as a defense a little bit. I don't think they're going to be an elite pass defense, but they're going to be competent. But again, Vernon Davis against Philly, a team that's been really good against tight ends, you don't need to attack that matchup. So I will stick with Kyle Rudolph in this one. I don't feel great about either, but I will say Rudolph. Sorry, it just skipped over. I'm sorry, guys. Like I said, when it skips over, I just have to go. Standard: Josh Gordon, Calvin Ridley, Curtis Samuel. Pick one. I'm probably going to go with Calvin Ridley in that situation. Again, so Xavier Rhodes is going to be covering Julio Jones. Rhodes is one of the better shadow cornerbacks in the league, but at the same time, Julio can beat him, but he'll limit him for sure. Whereas Calvin Ridley, the matchup isn't like brutal with Calvin Ridley, so I'll go with him. I'm not excited about Ridley this week. He's more of like a wide receiver 3, but Josh Gordon, the guy played in week 4 of the preseason. He played quite a few snaps in that game. He's going to be going against Joe Hayden, who I just talked about, what was phenomenal for the Steelers last year. Joe Hayden, last year when those two played in a game, I I want to say that Josh Gordon, he was in that game. He saw 2 targets. He only had 1 catch for, I think, 17 yards. So they clearly did not want to attack Joe Hayden in the game. I think it was a week 15 or week 14, somewhere in that range, where they played each other last year. So Gordon is not a great start this week. I actually have him on the bench in a few of my leagues that I have the choice. Curtis Samuel is the upside option, right? He's the guy against the Rams where it's like they have 2 physical cornerbacks. They have Aqib Talib and they have Marcus Peters. These are guys that are not built for speed. So DJ Moore, I think, is going to be in trouble. DJ Moore is not a speed. He's not he's not slow. Definitely not slow. But he's not like the speed freak that Curtis Samuel is. Like, he doesn't play as fast as Curtis Samuel. Curtis Samuel is also a movable chess piece. They can kind of move him around, get the matchups that they want to. So Curtis Samuel's an upside play. It wouldn't shock me if he's their number 1 wide receiver this week. But again, there is some risk in that because when Aqib Talib was in the lineup last year, that Rams defense was so much different. Like, they legitimately shut down opponents. If you're looking for upside, Samuel's the play. If you're looking for just pure like projection and what I have to do, I would say Ridley's the play. Mike Williams, Penny, or Curtis Samuel. Okay, so Mike Williams, like, I'm not in love with his matchup this week. I also don't hate it. Like, Mike Williams, if you watched him in the preseason, the dude is just massive, right? Like, the guy, I've said it on the podcast where I feel like he's someone that could be a Des Bryant in the NFL. You know, he scored double-digit touchdowns last year on just 66 targets. That's ridiculous. You know, scoring a touchdown every 6.6 targets, that's going to regress, absolutely. But at the same time, like, the targets, do they make up for that? I think Mike Williams has a chance to hit the 100 target mark this year, especially when you figure in the fact that Melvin Gordon, a guy that's been like contributing to the passing game a lot over the last couple of years, with him holding out, Mike Williams and the wide receivers, tight ends, whatever, they might see more targets because of that. Derwin James getting hurt, their defense takes a slight step back. There might be more pass attempts because of that. So Mike Williams is probably the way I would go here. I think the upside is there just as much as it is with Curtis Samuel, although I think you get a higher floor with Mike Williams. And then Rashad Penny, he's a number 2 running back on the Seahawks, right? There is a situation where I see Rashad Penny delivering flex numbers this week, and I think I have him ranked as such. I probably have him like right around the RB 33 or something like that this week. So I do believe that he's worth a flex play, but fortunately you have guys on your roster that are starters that you really don't have to start him over. So I'm going to go with Mike Williams in your situation. Latavius Murray or Tevin Coleman. Thanks, tags, and team. All right, well, this is a situation where I'm going to go with Tevin Coleman. Latavius Murray is someone that I'm a little down on this week, but again, that game he's at home. The game has a 53.5 over-under, which is pretty big. I think it's the biggest on the slate still. But again, Houston has been really good against running backs. Losing Jadeveon Clowney up the middle, I don't know what that changes in terms of, like, you know, all of a sudden, is Houston a team to attack? I don't think so. They still have DJ Reader. They still have J.J. Watt up the middle. You know, that's a really good, solid core up the middle. So I don't want to attack it. But Tevin Coleman against the Bucs, that's a good matchup, right? We know that the Bucs are not a good defense. Like, that defense is probably the worst in the NFL. So even though it is a timeshare, both of those running backs are in timeshares. One of them has the better matchup. I will go with Tevin Coleman. Tyler Boyd or D.D. Westbrook. I am playing Tyler Boyd. He's actually a guy that I'm probably going to be playing in my DFS cash game lineups, just because, like, you look at the Cincinnati roster and like where these targets are going to go. You look at the game script. They're playing in Seattle against a Seattle team. They're 9.5 point underdogs. It may have went up to 10, but they're massive underdogs in that game, which means they're not going to run the ball a whole lot, which means a lot of those plays are going to be pass attempts. The one thing they have going for them is that they have a brand new offense installed by Zach Taylor. He's someone that, you know, he's going to model his offense after Sean McVay. And if that's how he's going to do it, then it really sucks that he doesn't have AJ Green, because that's a pretty important piece of that offense. But Tyler Boyd is going to basically be the Cooper Kupp, which, you know, he's going to be peppered with targets. I don't see any situation where he sees fewer than 8 targets this game. D.D. Westbrook, probably a safe option, but what's the upside with him? We also just heard this morning that Nick Foles is going to be missing his starting left tackle, Cam Robinson. He is out for this game. He hyperextended his knee. So they're going to be starting 2 tackles this week that have not played a single snap in the NFL. That's never ideal. So Nick Foles in the Jags offense, I don't know if I want to trust that passing offense. So I'm going to go with Tyler Boyd. Baker Mayfield or Jameis Winston. This is a really tough one. This is one that I've kind of gone back and forth on, where it's like the quarterback position this week, there's a lot of guys that I could talk myself into, and then there's reasons that I could talk myself off of them, right? Baker Mayfield, I happen to like a lot. He's someone that Odell Beckham matches up with Malcolm Butler or Adoree Jackson. I don't really care who they put on him. It doesn't matter because he beats them like a drum all day. Jarvis Landry is good enough to hang with Logan Ryan. And then Rashard Higgins, a guy that, we saw through the preseason, has good rapport with Baker Mayfield. And again, he's going to see one of those cornerbacks. And then you have David Njoku, who, he's a guy that can score 2 touchdowns in any game. Like he's a freak athlete. So Baker, I don't have much concern about. He's at home. Jameis Winston, I want to say I don't have concern about him either, but one thing that we do know about San Francisco is they've gotten a lot better up front since last year. This is not the same 49ers defense that you saw last year. Adding Bosa to that front, adding D Ford, they've added Quan Alexander. Like their front 7 is a lot different this year. They have 3 brand new pieces that are like playmakers. So it may not be as easy for Winston, where Winston also has games from time to time where you're like watching and you're like, what the hell is he doing? So it's possible we have one of those. I don't necessarily think that happens because, again, we're under Bruce Arians' offense. It's a new offense there. Arians is a better offensive mind than Dirk Cutter. So I'm going to say Baker Mayfield, but it is close. It's close. Miles Sanders, Latavius Murray, or Curtis Samuel, half PPR. I am riding with Miles Sanders. I'm doing it in my own leagues too. So understand that this one, there is risk. But I've talked about Latavius Murray and the risk involved with him. I've talked about the risk with Curtis Samuel. Miles Sanders is a guy that I walked through in the primer this week, and I wanted to explain to people that the Eagles ran the ball 29 and 30 times last year against the Redskins. Okay, 29 and 30 times. I would say that the Redskins are a worse team than they were then, and I would say that the Eagles are healthier and they're a better team. So it's like, even if we say the lowest, 30 carries, okay, we're finding 30 carries to split between Jordan Howard, Miles Sanders, and Darren Sproles. Sproles, I don't think, topped 4 carries last year. They didn't trade for Howard because they wanted him to have more carries. They didn't draft Miles Sanders in the 2nd round because they didn't want to give him carries. They didn't wait in free agency to grab Darren Sproles. That was a late addition. I thought Darren Sproles was going to retire. So when we're talking about 30 carries, it's like, okay, give Sproles 4. We'll call it 4. Okay, we're looking at 26 carries between Jordan Howard and Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders is also a 3-down back and catch passes out of the backfield. I happen to like Miles Sanders a lot this week, and I feel like he's one of those guys in DFS that I'm going to throw in a lot of tournament lineups. And I know that the rumor came out this morning that he's not starting for the Eagles. I really don't care. If Jordan Howard gets the first snap, whatever. If Darren Sproles gets the first snap, I don't care. The best running back on that team is Miles Sanders, and I'm going to play him as such. So I have him as, I think, my RB29. I'm not like I said, there's risk associated with him, but there is upside there too. All right, bench Diggs in PPR for the safety of Latavius Murray, Miles Sanders, Josh Gordon, or Pettis? No, I would not do that. No. Those guys don't have safety. None of those guys have safety. They're all risky options. Diggs is a little bit risky as well, but Diggs is the guy that, I would play. Julio Jones or Adam Thielen? Thielen. I'd play Adam Thielen this week. He's in my cash game lineup. Like he's like one of my locks of the week. Like I'm playing Adam Thielen everywhere. Josh Gordon or Sony Michel. Sony Michel, for sure. It's a PPR format, so it definitely hurts Sony a little bit, but Josh Gordon, he may not play all the snaps this week, and even if he does, he did not get it done against Joe Hayden last year, so I don't want to attack that matchup if I can help it, and again, Josh Gordon's still working his way back into game shape. Let's see. Sorry, guys, I skipped over again. Carson Wentz or Jameis Winston? I would play Jameis Winston personally. So my concern is that Carson Wentz didn't play at all in the preseason. We saw Aaron Rodgers and Mitch Trubisky. Like I posted this like the morning after the game happened. I said that none of the starters played in the preseason, and it showed. Aaron Rodgers looked like crap too. I know the biggest takeaway here is that Trubisky looked terrible, but Aaron Rodgers looked bad too. So Carson Wentz not playing at all in the preseason, is that concerning? Maybe a little bit. He could come out a little bit rusty. And this is not a game where the Eagles are going to need to pass the ball a ton. You know what I mean? We're talking about a game against the Redskins, who are starting Case Keenum, who doesn't have Jordan Reed, that has no wide receivers. Like, you know what I mean? Like Darius Geis is his first game action that he's going to be seeing. Like, I am not. I don't think the Eagles are going to have problems winning that game, so it could be a very low pass attempt for Carson Wentz. So I'm going to go with Jameis Winston in that one. I know a lot of people like Carson Wentz this week, and it's not to say I don't see a situation where he does well, because I do, but I think Jameis Winston's a safer play there, and that sounds weird. Tyrell Williams or Jamison Crowder? Crowder is Darnold's safety valve or the Gazelle boom or bust. Yeah, I'm going to go with Tyrell Williams, and it really sucks because I made a bet with someone on our podcast this offseason saying that Tyrell Williams wouldn't finish as a top 40 wide receiver, and Well, I mean, now with Antonio Brown gone, I feel really bad about that because Tyrell Williams is probably going to be targeted quite a bit. I do think that it's similar to the way that Jordy Nelson was played last year, where it's like a guy that can deliver wide receiver 3 numbers, when he gets targeted. I don't necessarily love the matchup this week against Denver because he's going to see Chris Harris, he's going to see Bryce Callahan. It's just not a great matchup, and I also don't think that Derek Carr is going to have a whole lot of time to find him down the field. So it's going to be a tougher matchup for him, but I'm going to go with Tyrell Williams because I know he has to kind of get targeted. Whereas Jamison Crowder, there's a lot of options there in New York. You have Le'Veon Bell. I don't think they're going to have to throw the ball a whole lot this week if they don't want to. Robbie Anderson is playing. Quincy Enunwa is playing. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't feel great about either of these options, but I go with Tyrell just because I think the target floor is higher. That's all. Let's see. Start 2, half PPR. Robert Woods, Kenny Galladay, Duke Johnson. Whoo, that's tough, man. That is a tough one because I think Robert Woods is probably going to see James Bradberry in coverage, and Bradberry has been pretty good for the majority of his career. He has some hiccups. Kenny Galladay against backup cornerbacks in Arizona. Arizona, if you guys didn't know, the Cardinals are without Patrick Peterson. They placed Robert Alford on injured reserve, so they're down to Byron Murphy, who I do like. Byron Murphy's a rookie cornerback, though, and cornerbacks don't just walk in and dominate the NFL. That's just not how it works with corners. And then they have only 2 other healthy cornerbacks that were on the roster a couple days ago. So it's really tough to sit Kenny Galladay this week. I think you have to play him. And then Duke Johnson offers you a floor. Again, we're talking about a guy that's playing for the Texans. They could be without Kiki QT. Kenny Still's only been with the team for a little bit. Will Fuller coming off the ACL. DeAndre Hopkins dealing with Marshawn Lattimore. There's a lot of reasons here that I would probably go with Duke Johnson and Kenny Galladay. Just give me the guaranteed touches for Duke Johnson. It's hard to sit Woods. It really is. But he probably has the toughest matchup of the Rams wide receivers this week. All right. Derrick Henry or Larry Fitzgerald. PPR. I would play Larry Fitzgerald personally. I'm higher than a lot on Larry Fitzgerald this week. This is a situation where I'm saying, you know what? Kyler Murray is a rookie. He needs to find the guy that he likes in the offense. He legitimately is going to need that safety valve because Detroit is going to get after him. They have a nasty front 4. They stop the run extremely well. David Johnson's not going to find anything on the ground against them. The offensive line for the Cardinals, obviously not great. Larry Fitzgerald is the one running those shorter routes out of the slot. And, with Christian Kirk playing more on the perimeter, having some younger options in the wide receiver core, no really tight end, I think David Johnson and Larry Fitzgerald rack up a lot of receptions in this game. So I'm going to go with Fitzgerald. Derrick Henry is someone, if you check out the primer, I posted the splits in there with Derrick Henry when they are underdogs and when they're favorites. In games where they're underdogs, he averages 11 carries per game. He's been terrible in those games. He can break a long run at any point, but Cleveland is that defense is getting better and better. And knowing that Derrick Henry is without the starting left tackle, Taylor Lewan, that's a massive deal. So I'm going to play Larry Fitzgerald there. And I know that a lot of people might be like, wow, but that's how I feel. Superflex, is Carr worth starting without AB? Or should I pivot to someone like Deion Lewis, Debo, or Devontae Parker? No, I would play Carr. I understand that there's concern without AB. I get that. But the other guys, if you were giving me someone like a Larry Fitzgerald, I would think about it more. But Deion Lewis, Debo Samuel, and Devontae Parker, not it. Let's see. PPR Flex, Josh Gordon, James White, or Latavius Murray. I would play James White. James White's my pick. Again, we're talking about the fact that James White just lost some ceiling when Antonio Brown comes back, but Antonio Brown's not there this week. Josh Gordon is still working back into game shape. He might be in a snap count. There's a lot of reasons to like James White in this game, so I'm going to go James White. PPR Flex, Dante Pettis, Rashad Penny, Michael Gallup, or Justice Hill. I'm going to go with Dante Pettis in this one. I feel like the hatred on Dante Pettis has kind of gone too far. Dante Pettis is a guy that can beat this team, like Tampa Bay. Again, this is one of the worst cornerback units in the NFL. It might be the worst cornerback unit in the NFL. They don't really have a guy that would be starting on most teams. So I'm going to say Dante Pettis with Jimmy Garoppolo. Garoppolo looked better in the final preseason game he played in. Pettis did play into the fourth quarter throughout some of the preseason, but then we're also hearing Kyle Shanahan say the reason he was out there was he wants him to be great. He's pushing him. And I just don't think there's anybody else in that roster that rivals him talent-wise. I just feel like Dante Pettis would be the guy I'd play. Help, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf, or Josh Gordon, wide receiver, half PPR. So DK is someone that he might be on a snap count, coming off the knee scope. I know he says that he's ready to play as many snaps as the Seahawks will give him, but I'm not willing to trust that just yet. I want to see him in the offense. I want to see him on the field first. Josh Gordon, we've talked about the risk with him. And then DJ Moore, I've also talked about the risk with him. This is tough. I'd probably go with DJ Moore here. At least I know he's healthy. At least I know he's playing snaps. The matchup is tough against Talib and Peters, but I will go with him over Gordon just because, again, Gordon could be on a snap count. He was a guy that I'm purposely trying to avoid if I can help it this week, just because I would prefer to give him a week to get back in the lineup to see where the snaps are at. Phillip Lindsay or Marlon Mack PPR. I'm going to go with Phillip Lindsay in this game just because, like, Mack, again, I do think that Marlon Mack is the best running back on the Colts roster, but if they do fall behind, I think Nyheim Hines is the guy that's going to see more of those targets. Marlon Mack, can he catch passes? Yes. Is he as good as a third down back as Nyheim Hines? No. Did they draft Nyheim Hines with Marlon Mack on the roster? Yes. So, like, those things all add up to Hines is still going to be involved. And I just don't think that offense is going to score a whole ton of points against the Chargers this week. Whereas Phillip Lindsay against Oakland, there's enough carries to go around against Oakland. Let's just be real. So I'm going to go with Phillip Lindsay there. Possibility of a high point ceiling for Matt Ryan today versus the Vikings. Not good at all. Not good at all. If that game was in Atlanta, I'd say that there's a better chance, but knowing it's against a healthy Viking squad in Minnesota, it's just not great at all. So if Matt Ryan puts up top 15 numbers this week, I'd be shocked. I have him actually ranked outside of my top 20, if I'm not mistaken. I might have him as QB 21 this week. So Matt Ryan is lower on my board. James White or Tevin Coleman for my flex and PPR. I'd go James White. All right. Good morning, Tags. Need PPR flex Westbrook, Kupp, or Coleman. I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp. Like, if they're telling us Cooper Kupp's healthy, we kind of have to believe it. And he has the best matchup against Carolina. If they want Cooper Kupp to get off to a fast start, this is the matchup to do it. Again, Dante Jackson is going to match up with Brandon Cooks. You're going to have James Bradbury dealing with Robert Woods. So I'm going to go with Cooper Kupp here. I think Westbrook, some people might say Westbrook's a safer option, and he might be just because, like, Kupp, this is his first game off an ACL, but he was out there in contact and practices and everything like that. So there's little reason for me to think that Kupp's not ready to play. So I'm going to go with him. Eckler versus Duke, Kupp versus Dede. All right, let's see. Austin Eckler versus Duke Johnson. That's a tough one. That's a really tough one. I'm going to say Austin Eckler just because at least I know what his role is in that offense. It's a 65-35 split with him and Justin Jackson. Eckler is involved in the passing game. And again, they used Gordon in that role quite a bit along with Eckler. So I would assume that his floor is higher than Duke, where it's Duke's first game with Houston. We don't know how much they're going to use Carlos Hyde. We just don't know the time split there, right? Whereas Eckler, I think we do. So I'll go with Eckler there. Cooper Kupp versus Dede. I just talked about that one, so I'm going to go Kupp. Cam Newton or Matthew Stafford. That one's so tough. Like, my heart tells me that you should be starting Matthew Stafford. That's what my heart says. My rankings have Cam Newton there just because, like, the floor with Cam Newton has always been much better in terms of, like, what he offers, with his legs. But coming off of that foot sprain, it's not ideal. I don't know how bad it was. I think that whole thing was a little bit overblown, but there could be something to it. And that's kind of that's the only thing that I'm worried about. Whereas Matthew Stafford, the only thing I have concern about there is, they are going on the road. Matt Patricia does want to run the ball. Kerryon Johnson and CJ Anderson should be able to run all over the Cardinals. That's my concern with Stafford, is that the game script it slows down, that they want to slow that game down on the road. So I guess I'll go with Cam. I don't feel great about it, but I guess I'll go with Cam. All right, let's see. Josh Jacobs or Latavius Murray? I would go with Jacobs. Jacobs, again, it's going to be tough for him to get things done this year. I was worried with AB on the roster. I don't feel better with him off the roster. Mike Williams or Marvin Jones? I think I have them like right by each other in the rankings this week, to be honest with you. That's a go with your heart situation. I think Marvin Jones has been continually undervalued this offseason. I think he still can play. He's only 29 years old. That's still in, like, as far as I'm concerned, fantasy purposes, that's still the prime of a wide receiver's career. And I've done studies on that. Believe me, it's a real thing. And him going up against backup cornerbacks, the question is, like, what's the split between him and Galladay? Is Danny Amendola, involved more than we think? TJ Hawkinson's gathered a bunch of steam. Do they slow that game down? Mike Williams, that's another game where it's like the Chargers should beat the Colts. That shouldn't be a very close game either. So this is really tough. I think Marvin Jones has the better matchup, where it's like Mike Williams. I'm going to go Marvin Jones here. Like, I think I just talked myself into that. I think I'm going to go with Marvin Jones. Just drop Pollard for Waller. Other tight ends are Hawkinson and Ebron. This is a PPR league. Who to drop or should I wait? Wait, you have 3 tight ends on your roster? That you do not need 3 tight ends. Honestly, the lowest one in my rankings is Hawkinson, and it's just because I don't believe in rookie tight ends. I just think it takes them a while to catch up, and I could be wrong on this. Hawkinson could be a top 12 tight end, but I'm willing to live with that. Like I don't think the upside is enough for me to think Hawkinson will make me pay. So I guess that he'd probably be the one I drop. Waller is going to walk into 80 targets. Jared Cook saw over 100 targets in that offense last year. Jared Cook is not like a specimen that you have to worry about. He had his best year under John Gruden. So with Antonio Brown gone, Waller's going to get some targets. And then Ebron, don't underestimate Ebron in terms of what the offense can bring. The offensive system does favor the tight end position, and Jacoby Brissett, even before Frank Reich came over back in 2017, Jacoby Brissett targeted tight ends almost 30% of the time, which is a lot more than most quarterbacks in the league do. So I don't think Ebron is someone that you absolutely have to drop. So you shouldn't be carrying 3 tight ends. Bottom line is that you legitimately can stream the position. Peyton Barber or Deion Lewis, full PPR. Ugh, that's ugly. That is ugly, man. I don't know what to expect from the Bucs backfield. I really don't. Whereas Deion Lewis is going to be involved a little bit. I know they said they want to get Derrick Henry involved more in the passing game, but I don't necessarily believe that. He's never caught more than 15 balls in a year at any level. So Deion Lewis is probably the guy I would go with in a full PPR. If this was half, I might lean Barber, but I'll go Deion Lewis in a full PPR. PPR flex, Tyler Boyd or Austin Eckler. I'm going to go with Boyd. Eckler's matchup's not great against the Colts. The Colts were one of the teams in the NFL who didn't allow a 100-yard rushing game, or was it one? I can't remember right now. But it was. I don't think they allowed a single 100-yard rushing game against them. Eckler can get it done, through the air too. But I'm gonna go Tyler Boyd, who again he should have an 8 target floor in that game, and they're in Seattle. The game script favors the passing game, and losing Justin Coleman this offseason for the Seahawks, that's obviously not ideal for them. So I'm going to I'm gonna go with Tyler Boyd there. Jameis Winston or Brady? Winston all day. The Brady Roethlisberger, I could see that game turning into a shootout, sure. But I think that both of these defenses are good. I think that it hurts both Roethlisberger and Gronk, or Roethlisberger and Brady, to lose some of their top options, losing Rob Gronkowski, having Josh Gordon maybe at less than 100%. Roethlisberger losing AB. There's a lot of question marks in that game, and the last time they played each other, it wasn't exactly a shootout. So I have Brady as just a middling QB2. Same thing with Roethlisberger. Whereas Jameis Winston I have as a solid QB1. Brandon Cooks or Tyler Lockett. Considering Cooks is matched up with Dante Jackson, a guy who has just as much speed as he does, I might go Lockett there. I'll go Lockett just because. Who else is Russell Wilson going to throw to? I think there's a realistic situation. By the way, if you guys, I haven't seen a question yet, and my rankings kind of highlight how I feel about it. But Russell Wilson is someone that I'm terrified of starting this week. I don't want to start him if I don't have to. He's a guy that legitimately, he threw the ball 400 something times last year. We know that's a real thing. But this week, I think it's a realistic possibility that Russell Wilson throws the ball fewer than 25 times, and that's never a good thing for fantasy football. He's not running the ball very much anymore. I don't think he needs to run the ball very much in this game. So if you have Russell Wilson, he's someone that I'm highly considering sitting this week. If you have a good alternative option, I would actually start Jimmy Garoppolo over him. James White or Robert Woods. Man, that's tough. I'll probably go James White again, just for the reason that they don't have Antonio Brown this week, and then Josh Gordon not expected to play a full snap count. Sorry, guys. Every now and then I gotta clear up the throat. So let's get back to these questions. All right. Carson Wentz or Cam? That's the situation. I'd go Carson Wentz. The matchup is good enough for him to play. It's just the question, is he rusty coming out of the gate? Cam has a tough matchup against the Rams. I know that game has a higher over-under than I thought it would have. But again, I don't know where the points come from in that game. So I'm gonna say that Carson Wentz. Hey, what's up, Tags? Should I start Jimmy Garoppolo or Matt Ryan at standard format? Thanks. Have a great day. Thanks, man. You have a good day, too. We're all going to have a good day. We're watching football, no matter what. Even if you lose, understand, guys, it's 1 week. It's not a big deal. But in this case, I would go Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, Matt Ryan's like ceiling in this game. Like going back to looking at Minnesota last year in terms of what they allowed at home. If you go back over since they've opened this stadium, this team has been just phenomenal against the pass. Like they just do not allow passing touchdowns in that stadium very often. So if Matt Ryan throws for 225 yards and 2 touchdowns, that's like a legitimate like great game in Minnesota. I don't even think that happens, and that's concerning. Whereas Jimmy Garoppolo, they're like, I think the floor against Tampa Bay is like a 270 yards passing, 1 touchdown, but the upside for Jimmy Garoppolo in that game is 300 plus and 3 touchdowns. Like the Bucs defense is just bad. Let's see, Matt Breida or Josh Jacobs, PPR. I might actually go Breida there. And this is something that earlier in the week, I may have sided with Jacobs, but I'm going to go with Matt Breida here just because I know that the defense is not good. The Bucs defense is not good, whereas Josh Jacobs going against Vic Fangio's defense in Denver. Again, Denver's strength is up front. That secondary is where there's question marks. So I'm going to go and say that Breida would be someone that I would start over Josh Jacobs. I'm really curious to see how much Jalen Richard is used in the passing game, because if they want to keep like Jalen Richard in that role, and they're going to give Josh Jacobs like that Doug Martin, Marshawn Lynch role, I think it's somewhat a mistake, because I think Jacobs is a much better receiver than those guys. But Jalen Richard might have more value. And by the way, he was in my article this week as like an early waiver wire pickup. Like if you're like weak at running back and you're looking for someone like, just to grab off the waiver wire that's available in like 80% of leagues, Jalen Richard is someone, next week they're playing the Chiefs. They're going to fall behind very fast in that game. So Jalen Richard should have PPR value. Goff or Brady? Jared Goff. I go Jared Goff. Duke Johnson or James White? Oh, that's tough. I'd probably go Duke Johnson in that one. That one's close enough where I might lean Duke Johnson. I think White might have more upside, but I will go with, because by the way, the Saints are like a really good team against running backs. I don't think people realize that they allowed like 3.3 or 3.2 yards per carry last year to running backs. It's kind of stupid, but Duke Johnson should be involved in the passing game too. Again, a high scoring game. So I'll go Duke there. It's close. It's close. Darius Geis or Philip Lindsay in PPR. I will go Lindsay here. Again, Geis is someone that moved inside my top 30, but the game script is going to be terrible in this game. I think they are going to use Chris Thompson quite a bit when they fall behind. So I will go with Philip Lindsay. Matt Breida or Damian Williams. That's a situation where I'm going Williams. Damian Williams is he's not someone that I like love this week, but when you start thinking about like, okay, are the Chiefs going to score points? Yeah, they're going to score points. Patrick Mahomes didn't throw a single touchdown against that team last year. Okay, Jacksonville, if the strength is the secondary, like that, Jalen Ramsey and AJ Boye, best cornerback doing in the league. It's not even close. So it's like you figure Tyreek Hill's limited shutdown, whatever. Jalen Ramsey. You have AJ Boye shutting down Sammy Watkins. It's like, okay, we have Travis Kelce. That's fine. But is Travis Kelce the only one that's going to perform in the Chiefs? No. Damian Williams is going to get some run. They're saying that they're expecting LaShawn McCoy to get 15 to 20 snaps in this game, which is fine. Damian Williams, that means he's the leader in the clubhouse. Like he's going to get plenty of snaps. I anticipate 12 to 15 touches for him, and that should be more than enough. Where it's like, I will take that over Breida, where it's like, I like Matt Breida this week, but we can't pretend it doesn't come without risk. Let's see. Chris Godwin, Tyler Lockett, Duke Johnson, DD, PPR flex. Godwin's he's kind of like a must play this week. You have to play him. Cam Newton or Lamar Jackson in standard. Lamar Jackson, he's someone that like I'm probably gonna like. I've been so undecided, guys. Like usually I have my cash game lineup like set by this time, but I like at the quarterback position, I'm just so torn because it's like I could talk myself out of anybody, but I could talk myself into people too. Lamar Jackson, he's on the road in Miami. Miami has like one of the worst front sevens in all football. Probably it might be the worst front seven in all football. Like they're tanking, obviously. Just traded away one of their starting linebackers. They didn't have pass rushers to begin with. So I can't see Lamar Jackson being under duress in this game. I can't see Miami putting points on the board. So does Lamar Jackson need to throw a whole lot? No, but do we want him to throw a whole lot? Probably not. Like we want him to run the ball. So Lamar Jackson's the guy that I want in that. Cup or penny flex? Cup. Vance McDonald or Darren Waller, half PPR. I'm going to go Vance McDonald because we did see the Patriots last year have some trouble with the tight end position, especially, when they have other concerns to worry about, and they do. So I'll go with Vance McDonald there. Marlon Mack or James White, full point PPR. Man, that's tough. In a full point PPR, I think I have to go James White. It's really close, though. That's really close. Mm, yeah. That one's really tough. Like that's one of the tougher ones that I came across. I'd probably go James White just because it's a full point PPR. And I think there was one game last year where he caught more than 2 passes. Emmanuel Sanders or Tevin Coleman, PPR, flex. So I would go Tevin Coleman there just because Sanders is a guy that has a decent matchup. He does. But the thing is, we don't know how this is going to look. Like, he's coming off an Achilles. I know he had the end around in the preseason, and he looks healthy, and he's been practicing. I get it. I just want to see it in a game before I can fully trust him is all. But, I mean, it's good that you have him because he probably came cheaper than he probably should have. But, yeah, I'd go Tevin in that one. All right. Damian Williams or Tyler Lockett? Oh, man. Usually when I'm torn like this, I usually lean the running back because I want the guaranteed touches, and that's probably where I go. I don't feel great about it, but I guess I probably go Damian Williams. I don't feel great about it, though. Full PPR. James White or Damian Williams. All right, I mentioned Damian Williams. I'd go with him there. Christian Kirk or Paul Richardson standard. I think Paul Richardson's an interesting one. I talked about him in the primer too, is someone that, like, in all but one of his games last year with Washington, he saw at least 5 targets, and that's a solid floor, especially when you're talking about a game that they're going to be going up against the Philadelphia defense that has stopped the run very well. You're looking at game script here, and then you start thinking about, like, who are they going to throw the ball to? We have Chris Thompson we've talked about. Vernon Davis, the matchup's not great. And then we look through the wide receiver core. There's really no one there. So, I mean, me personally, I'm probably going to go with Paul Richardson over Christian Kirk, even though I understand why people would say Kirk, but I'll probably just stick with Richardson there. Standard quarterback scoring, Carson Wentz or Lamar Jackson. Lamar Jackson is the one I would go with, I think, here. Again, I've talked about Wentz. There is potential there with him, but there's also some downside. Eckler or Damian Williams, full PPR. I'll go Damian Williams here. Neither of them have good matchups, but I will go Damian Williams. All right, full PPR, John Brown, Rashad Penny, or Justin Jackson. I'm worried about John Brown this week. So my buddy Sigmund Bloom, he was on our show this week, and he's someone I respect, and he's always thinking outside the box. But he likes John Brown this week, and me, I'm not into him this week just because when I think about what Greg Williams does for a defense, right? The Jets, he's their new defensive coordinator. For those who don't know, he's a guy that brings pressure. Like, he blitzed over 40% of the time last year with the Browns, and that was the number that he was the number one. That was the number one defense in terms of, like, how often they blitzed. So if they bring the pressure to Josh Allen, who had a quarterback rating of like 40 under pressure last year, it's going to be an issue. And John Brown is a guy that he's a route runner. He's not someone that's a physical guy. He's not going to win in contested catch situations. He's going to beat you with route running. So I'm going to go in. I'm going to say Rashad Penny here, just because I feel like that's what my heart says. Like, I like John Brown. All it takes is one play for him to pay off, and, you know, he could catch that ball. But I just don't think the odds are in his favor against the Jets. Austin, I'm guessing that means Austin Hooper or Darren Waller in PPR. I'll go with Hooper just because I want to see it with Waller if I can help it. And if you have Austin Hooper, then you at least know his role. That's probably where I go. Geis or Alshon PPR. Ooh. Give me Alshon in that one. Yeah, I'll go. Oh man, that's so tough. Maybe I go with Geis because Alshon. I talked about the concern about Wentz, and that falls down to Alshon Jeffrey and the fact that, you know, if there's not a lot of pass attempts, if they're rusty at all, he is going to see Josh Norman. Norman is not the same cornerback he used to be. He's really not. But Alshon Jeffrey is also getting older too. I want to say Alshon, but Geis has the guaranteed touches. That's tough. That's really tough. I guess I'll go with Geis. Give me the guaranteed touches. Eliminate some of the risk if you can. Stafford or Ryan? I play Matt Stafford. Sony, Joe Mixon, a half PPR at flex. I'd go with Sony Michel this week. I think it's possible. So Joe Mixon is someone that I've kind of gone through the game script in my mind and how that game should go, and, you know, how we expect, you know, Seattle to maybe be up, you know, 21-3 or something like that. That's very possible. And is it possible that Joe Mixon scores like 2 garbage time touchdowns? Absolutely it is. He can score a touchdown. Like, he's a guy on their team that he can get it done in the passing game. He's obviously their number 1 running back. And if Seattle does bring a heavy pass rush, if they run like a draw and he gets through the first line of defense, he's going to be tough to stop. So I don't hate Mixon this week. I have him as a middling RB2, but I think Sony Michel is someone that scores in this game against Pittsburgh. All right, guys. Thank you so much for being in here today. Like week one, obviously, we want to build the momentum in here. So go ahead, click that like button if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much. I have another couple minutes. I'm going to answer a few more questions. And again, on the screen there, you guys can see the My Playbook app is awesome. Especially when you like. So if you're like me, and I cut my leagues down this year. I'm 16 leagues, but it has an autopilot feature, which is awesome. Like where if I'm doing this show and so let's say that something happened inactive that I missed. Which it should never happen. But if it does, or if you like, let's say you go to church in the morning, whatever the case is, and you're worried about if you've ever forgotten to put someone in a lineup, we have an autopilot feature that actually you can sync your team up to, and if there's someone that's announced as inactive, it can automatically swap them out. It's like cheating, guys. Like it's just awesome. So check that out. It's right there in the thing. So let's see, Stafford or Cousins. I have Cousins higher than Stafford this week. Stafford does have some potential, but I'm going to go with Kirk Cousins just because he's at home. It's the Atlanta defense is pretty. I would imagine they're going to be pretty tough up front. And if there's a reason I like Adam Thielen this week because I think that he can eat the slot up against them. They're going to be moving a safety down to nickel cornerback and trusting him there. So I'm going to go Cousins just because I feel like he's sturdier. I think he comes with a better floor. All right, ceiling for Darius Geis this week. Thanks, Tags. The ceiling is not great. Let's just be clear. I don't know if I can see a case where he gets more than like 12, 13, 14 carries. And Philadelphia has been really, really good against the run. Some people will look up and they'll say Adrian Peterson had like 90-some yards against them last year. 90 of them came on like one run. And then the other matchup, he had 4 carries for 0 yards. Like this is going to be a really bad game script for Darius Geis. He's not the best pass catcher on the team. Can he catch passes? Yes. But Chris Thompson's going to steal some of that work too. So, I mean, Darius Geis, RB2 is probably a ceiling for him. Robert Woods, Josh Jacobs, or Kenny Golladay, half PPR flex. I would go Kenny Golladay in that situation. Galladay's matchup is fantastic. Robert Woods or Waller, half PPR flex. Robert Woods. Yeah, I'm not going to sit Robert Woods for Darren Waller. Like we could say all we want about Waller and how we think he's going to get targets and how, where the target's going to go in the offense. But there are other guys in that offense that can get targets. We talked about Jacobs. We talked about Jalen Richard. They obviously drafted Hunter Renfrow, who some people like, Tyrell Williams. So those guys can steal some targets. I don't see much production against Denver. So I'll go Robert Woods there, even though he does have a tough matchup. Mahomes or Lamar Jackson? I can't sit Mahomes. If you have Mahomes, like you're playing him. But if this is a DFS question, I'm playing Lamar Jackson. All right, let's see. Start Matt Ryan, Kirk Cousins, or Tom Brady. Cousins would be my choice. I just think the floor is there and there's a ceiling there too. Need a flex to start between Josh Jacobs, Mike Williams, and Latavius Murray. I guess I'll go Jacobs. I'm not excited about it, but I'll go Josh Jacobs of those options. Guaranteed touches. Mike Williams, nothing really guaranteed there. We're hoping. And then Latavius Murray, tough matchup. Obviously the number 2 running back. There's some things to like, but I'll go Jacobs and I'll take the guaranteed touches. Mark Andrews or Darren Waller. I'm going to go with Darren Waller. I don't know. This is so tough. Okay, I'll go with Mark Andrews. Miles Sanders or Josh Gordon? I'd play Miles Sanders personally. I actually think I have that question in one of my leagues. I'm starting Miles Sanders. I talked about him at the top of the show about how I do expect the Eagles to run the ball 30 plus times this game, even if it's just 30, which by the way they did against Washington 29 and 30 times last year. If him and Jordan Howard are splitting carries, I'm not that worried about it. If he gets 13 to 15 carries, he'll provide flex value. And he's the one who obviously he handles pass down work too. Stephon Diggs or Marvin Jones? Stephon Diggs. I'd still play Diggs there. I like Marvin Jones this week more than most. I have him as like a high-end wide receiver 3, but I can't play him over Diggs. Westbrook, Kupp, Jeffrey. I have Cooper Kupp. Oh, pick 2 of them. So I have Cooper Kupp, the number 1 option of those, and I guess we will go with D.D. Westbrook just for safety. Jeffrey has a higher ceiling than D.D. Westbrook, but I will go with Kupp and Westbrook as 2 guys that they should present a solid floor. Full PPR, Matt Breida or Marvin Jones. I'll go with Breida. Again, I'm going to take the guaranteed touches when I can get them. And that's just a rule, guys. If I don't ever get to your question, and like you're asking me a question like that you're completely torn on between a running back and a wide receiver, I'll usually lean towards the guy with the guaranteed touches. It just gives you a safer floor. And if you were really concerned about ceiling, you probably would have already made the decision because the wide receiver would probably have a higher floor because you're choosing a running back that doesn't have maybe a high ceiling. Let's see. Get a couple more here before I get out of here and start finishing the rankings, setting all my lineups. All right, full PPR, Duke Johnson versus Matt Breida. I'll go with Duke Johnson. I would prefer to see the timeshare between Breida and Coleman. I do happen to think that Breida is going to lead that timeshare, but at the same time, there's nothing guaranteed about it. And Duke Johnson's playing in a game with a team. That game has a total of, I think, 53.5 points, so it's massive. Darius Geis or Latavius Murray. I'll go Darius Geis there. They both have tough matchups, but Geis is locked into more work. Sony or White full PPR. Oh, man, that's so close. I'll probably go Sony just because he's a guy that's going to get more guaranteed touches than White, but I like them both this week, actually. Mayfield or Murray, Eckler or Woods. So I would play Baker Mayfield over Kyler Murray. Let's just wait a week on the Arizona offense if we can. I happen to think it's going to be fine. But this matchup against the Lions just don't allow rushing yards under Patricia. They haven't to quarterbacks, and they've played some good ones, some mobile quarterbacks. Eckler or Woods. I'll play Eckler. Woods has a tough matchup against James Bradbury. Eckler, at least, again, it's the guaranteed touch factor. So thank you guys for tuning in for the first stream of the year. We're going to be doing this every single week for a full hour. Bobby and I are doing a show on Tuesdays where we talk you guys through the waiver wire, let you know which players that you should be picking up, which ones you shouldn't. And then Bobby does a start-sit show on Thursdays. And then obviously I'll be here for you on Sundays. And if you have any questions, like if we got done with this live stream and you're like, I'm still torn on this one, go check out the primer, guys. The primer is, again, it has a paragraph on every player. In detail, it tells you why I like or don't like a player. Whew. But until next time, guys, lights out.